Shankar had driven lorries for so many years that the road had erased his sense of time. And on that night, when the forest highway swallowed the headlights and the fog fell like a living thing, he did not realize he was already driving through a memory he had tried to bury, the engine groaning like an animal that sensed death while the radio hissed with a voice that was not language but recognition. And when the woman appeared standing in the middle of the road, barefoot, soaked, her white sari clinging to her body as if she had just crawled out of water, he stopped not out of kindness, but because fear had frozen his hands. And when she climbed inside the cabin, the air turned cold enough to sting his lungs, her presence heavier than her body, her silence louder than the engine. And as the lorry moved again, Shankar saw in the mirror that she cast no reflection, only darkness where her face should have been. And when she finally spoke, her voice did not come from her mouth but from inside his skull, reminding him of the night years ago when the same fog had risen, the same road had curved, and the same scream had vanished under his tires, a scream he had chosen to outrun instead of stopping. And now the dashboard clock bled time backward while the fuel drained and the forest pressed closer, trees bending inward like witnesses leaning to watch an execution, and the woman's neck bent at an impossible angle as she whispered that roads remember what drivers deny, that steel carries guilt better than flesh. And suddenly the cabin filled with hands, rotting, broken, swollen hands, emerging from the seats, the steering wheel, the windshield, gripping him as the lorry accelerated on its own toward a crowd of silent figures standing ahead, all of them twisted the same way, all of them victims who had died without names. And when the crash came, it did not feel like impact but like acceptance. And in the morning, when the wreck was found, Shankar's body sat upright with eyes wide open and a smile stretched into something not human, while inside the cargo container the metal walls were scratched raw with hundreds of names and dates carved deep enough to expose bone beneath the steel. The final name still wet, still bleeding, as if the road itself had signed its last receipt. And from that night onward, every driver who passed that forest after midnight swore they could feel someone sitting behind them, breathing softly, waiting for them to make the same mistake. Raghav had been driving his lorry for 3 nights without proper sleep when the road began repeating itself. The same broken signboard, the same dead tree split like a rib cage, the same smell of burning rubber no matter how far he went. And at first he blamed exhaustion until he noticed that the odometer was moving. But the distance never changed, the forest on both sides growing thicker, darker, closer, as if the road were being swallowed inch by inch. And then the knocking started from inside the cargo container, slow at first, polite even, like someone unsure if they were allowed to ask for help. And when Raghav stopped and climbed down with a torch, his light revealed claw marks from the inside, deep, desperate, layered over older scratches, as if this lorry had carried the same terror many times before. And when the knocking stopped, the silence felt worse, heavy and listening, and as he climbed back into the cabin, the engine started by itself, and the knocking returned louder, frantic, mixed with muffled crying that slowly turned into chanting, voices overlapping, all repeating his name, even though he had never told it to anyone on this route. And the windshield began to fog from the inside, while wet fingerprints appeared one by one across the glass. sliding downward as if dragged by gravity that did not exist. And then the rear-view mirror showed the truth. The cargo container door was open, impossibly wide, and inside it was not empty but packed floor to ceiling, with people standing unnaturally still, their bodies crushed and folded at angles. No living spine could survive. Their mouths sewn shut with wire, eyes missing, faces turned toward him, even though they had no eyes to see. And as the lorry sped up uncontrollably, Raghav understood, with screaming clarity, that this road was not a shortcut but a delivery route, that every driver before him had been cargo before becoming a carrier, that the forest did not kill but stored. And when the final bend came, the road simply ended, dropping into a black pit that breathed upward like a lung. And as the lorry tipped forward, the people inside the container began pounding again, not to escape, but to welcome him home. And weeks later, when another driver passed that stretch, he found Raghav's lorry parked perfectly on the roadside with the engine idling. No sign of an accident, no sign of struggle, only fresh scratches inside the container walls, and one new voice added to the knocking. Calm now, patient, waiting for the next stop.